is now 3:36 p.m. You're going to call this January 2013 meeting of the Technical Advisory Committee to order. I'm so used to that. Happy New Year, everybody. Hope everybody had a wonderful holiday season and get back to the grind. So before I begin, I will call roll call. Mr. Hanson?
Here.
Mr. Willer?
Here.
Mr. Weaver and Mr. Rebucco are not with us. Mr. Horton?
Here.
Ms. Witt? Here. Ms. Marlowe is here. Ms. Howard? Present. Mr. Morris?
Here.
We do have a quorum. Thank you, everybody. Craig, would you please make our public involvement announcements?
All the public here, both of them. All AMATS meetings are public meetings. The public is invited to comment on all items before us. We'll have presentations by staff or consultants for each business item, and then discussion by the committee, and then an opportunity for the public to comment.
Thank you. All right. Next is the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes or modifications that happen? The agenda as we see it.
I would recommend that we, under business items, that we visit 5C prior to 5A, because the changes within the operating agreement, proposed amendment, could affect the bylaws for the Air Quality Advisory Committee. So you might just need to add a qualifier. That would be my recommendation.
Any other changes or comments to the agenda?
Do you have a motion?
Second, or so move the agenda as amended.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Howell, seconded by Mr. Morris and Ms. Witt. The agenda is so modified. Actually, are there any opposed? Hearing that, the agenda is so changed. So item 5C actually is now 5A. All right. Next is item 4, the approval of the minutes. And we have quite a few of them in front of us. Thank you.
We're getting there.
And I know there was a request to have most of the major comments hopefully emailed in, but we can still go through them individually to see if there's any minor revisions that need to be done. So we'll start with the November 3rd, 2011 minutes. Second. Moved to approve by Ms. Howe, seconded by Ms. Witt. Are there any opposed to approving the November 3rd, 2011 minutes? Hearing none, they are so moved. Next up is the April 12th, 2012.
And you will notice that that's a red line strikeout, so the revisions are in, they weren't on the one online, they are in the one in the packet.
Move to approve.
Which ones were they?
April 12th. The very next one. The very next one. Thank you. Moved by Ms. Howe. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Wilbur. Are there any opposed?
Just, Madam Chair, just let you know, I did send a couple small edits in. They're nothing regarding intent, just mostly spelling issues, so I don't think it was. And then it says all members were present when Mr. Carr and Mr. Hanson were actually absent, so I just made a couple grammatical changes for them and sent it in to Craig.
And I fixed it already.
Yeah, so just let you guys.
It's not in the copy.
Right.
Yeah.
I sent them in later.
Okay.
To support approval of the minutes.
Alright. So moved second. Any opposed? Alright, hearing none. April 12th minutes are also approved. We're now on to April 20th, 2012, which is the continuation of that meeting. Move to approve. Second. Moved by Ms. Howell, seconded by Ms. Witt. Are there any comments?
Additional comments. Again, I sent in some comments to Craig and Jill on page 29 at the bottom, and it's just clarifying the intent, and it had to do with the agreement between the city and the state, and when folks with maintenance get a chance to review it. So I was just clarifying the language, but not the intent.
Any other comments? Any opposed to approving the minutes? Hearing none, the April 20th meeting minutes are also approved. And now on to September 13th, 2012. Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Hawes, seconded by Mr. Morris. comments or questions on these?
Actually, I have to go over the others.
More time. I think more of them were just so it flowed a little better, not so much changing content. So like, that's what it looks like.
Alright. Are there any opposed to approving these September 13th? Hearing none, September 13th minutes are also approved. And last, but certainly not least, the November 1st, 2012 minutes. Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion, this is one that I think Bart had recommended that we withhold until we have an additional description under 5D for, because this is the one wrong of the bike. Commuter bike people came to support the amendment to the tip, and item 5D didn't have enough. It was recommended that it have a little additional description about the actual motion, is that correct?
Yeah, typically when we talk about a TIP amendment, we have a description of what the TIP amendment entails. And since this
Oh,
changed
yes.
since the last time it was brought to the TAC, in between this meeting when it was approved, it'd be good to have those changes identified.
Yeah, because right now it says Mr. Lane described the amendment and tip process, so just a description of what that tip amendment was.
Expand that
Yeah.
sentence to include the description.
What page are you on, John?
On page 5, the section D, at the very top of the page.
So the intent is to actually include the description of
The tip amendment.
the tip amendment itself.
Bart, I don't know, if the language that we sent back and forth, did you get a chance to?
Yeah,
The
it's-
second set of it?
No, the second set was the same as the first one. They were changed, the TIP originally came to the TAC, and then we released it for public comment, and when it came back, we added some more changes, not based on the bicycle comments, but other ones, and that's what we need to reflect in the description, and that wasn't in the email.
All right, no problem.
All right, so we had a motion and seconded. So
I
then
will
we want to-
withdraw my motion and move that we table this until next month.
Second concurs.
So both motion and second are withdrawn, and the motion to delay for this out and second by Mr. Wilbur.
And I'd just like to thank staff for taking on the work
Alright, and next up are business items, and we had changed item 5C to come to the beginning, so we're actually discussing the operating agreement amendment for advisory committees.
Added in March.
This is, sorry, I just want to see if you guys are awake.
Okay.
This one that has no number up here. It's shorter than the picture.
That's really.
So, 2013, I didn't want to start out slow.
So what's marked as 5C is actually 5B.
I'm not sure what it is now.
Actually, it's probably 5C, because we rotated the items.
Yeah.
You were anticipating we were changing this in
You
here.
guys were gonna do that. Okay, so the discussion came up, I believe, at the last TAC. Ms. Heil started the discussion about the technical committee and the seat held now by the Air Quality Advisory Committee, and how with the advent of the CO limited maintenance plan, that there will be less requirements, or fewer requirements, I should say, on what this MPO has to do for air quality conformity analyses and things of that nature. And that, in addition, the discussion that occurred when we had the bike and ped amendment, the thought was it might be a wise move to rotate that one seat currently held by the Air Quality Advisory Committee among the other advisory committees, partly to give them all a chance to be involved, but also to help educate both the Freight Advisory Committee and the Bike Committee on things that AMATS does, since some of these folks haven't ever been involved with it ever before. So the language that I put together was what came out of the operating agreement. It's just at the tail end of the description that's in the current operating agreement. And you can see the strike through is what is in the current operating agreement, and the underline is my suggested changes. So that's what I created there. Willing to have you guys kick it around with that.
Has the Air Quality Advisory Committee seen this? And
No. First we brought it out to see the light of day.
So the Freight Advisory Committee, Bike and Advisory Committee, nobody's really seen this up.
Nobody has seen it. The Air Quality Committee, the last time they met, we hadn't talked about this yet. There was a Freight Advisory Committee meeting yesterday, but I only got to about half the meeting before I had to leave, so, and it wasn't a business item to talk about there. The Bike and Ped Committee meets next Wednesday evening, and we'll bring it up then. So, but the rest of the other two committees haven't had an opportunity yet.
I think it might be good to at least let us all see what we're doing before it's done. Or before it goes to the policy committee. I think it's a good question, right, Jen?
Yeah, I mean, 'cause I know that I think Lois's term is ending soon, and so it would be an opportune time to rotate the membership to another committee at that time. But
I think she has another year.
oh, she does. I thought she was at the end of her.
And just
Well,
as,
but would we then? I guess at what point would we implement this?
well, the language in here says starting April 1st. That was tied in to coincide with the idea that most, I think all three of those advisory committees, their membership terms end in February. Correct?
I think they have elections in March.
Okay, so to what new?
Is that true? I don't know. Is that great?
So then would Lois stay on another year based on her current, or would we go ahead and, as a committee, and implement this and rotate it to another committee?
I guess it's up to you guys. As luck would have it, she was not at the last meeting when Cindy brought it up, and obviously she's not here at this meeting either. So she has not been involved and is probably not aware of this at all. This hasn't come up while she was here.
Although
So
it was in the meeting packet.
it certainly was in the meeting packet.
Yes, sorry.
I mean,
Mr. Rowan.
I'm not so sure that it's important. Maybe it might be a courtesy to let them know, all the committees, that we are thinking about having membership on there, but we do not need their approval. This is, yeah, but I mean, just to know that they're gonna be, we're gonna ask for their participation, but at the end of the day, it's a policy committee call. And I think they're gonna look to us to basically say, yeah, we have these committees, we wanna rotate the committees. We could bring it to their attention, say we don't like it. They could say we don't like it, we're gonna go, too bad. Pick somebody, you can serve. If we think it's a benefit to the overall process, I think we should do that. But I think giving them a heads up, as Cindy suggests, let them know that we're thinking about doing this and pulling the trigger in April is a good idea. But until we get there, I would recommend that Lois stay on for the first year. And then I would recommend that the Freight Advisory Committee be the first one in. They've been the longest standing, and then I would bring in the bike and then rotate back to the air quality, unless there's some other reason. And I mean, obviously, throughout the year, if we have a bike representative here and there's a hot freight issue, obviously there'll be some folks from the freight to give it there. So, I mean, as far as action, I guess we could delay it if there's no urgency to give those committees a sense that we're making this change as a courtesy to let them know. But at the end of the day, if we think it's a good idea, we should do it. And I think it's a good idea.
So maybe what we should do is this memo should be edited so that it actually puts in what your suggestion is, the implementation of it. So it's not only the language, but then we say that air quality would finish out, and that, April 1 is such and such a year, and such and such a year, that would be the freight. And then, so it's very clear. But, I mean, it's not gonna go into operating, it's just
Perfect.
saying what we're thinking
In our
about
staff
is
recommendation,
our
the pol- or-
staff recommendation of implementation is
Yep.
laid out,
Yep.
so that people can comment.
So they know that's the order. Yep.
And right now, does the Air Quality Committee have two-year terms or two one-year terms?
Three-year terms.
Huh?
They have 3-year terms.
3 one-year terms?
Two 3 years. 2 3 year terms.
Three-year terms.
On the committee itself, what about with the TAC?
It's a,
Well, it's just, yeah,
Whoever
it's sort
they
of,
want.
they
yeah.
get voting every year, every.
So they could
every-
potentially be on it for 6 years.
Yeah.
Or we could introduce the beneficiary.
I mean, what's gonna happen is March, they're gonna, everybody, the bylaws are to, all the elections to be either reaffirmed or reelected. So, in essence, if we just look at it, April 1, it could be new for everybody. Now, do we keep an air quality person on there, or do we, don't worry about who's sitting into it, because it could be all new, and we just say, well, air has been on here for several years, do we just start now, this year, and every year rotate? Or do we wait another whole year? I mean,
And I'm not specific to Lois, I was just saying the standing air quality advisory, because based on the new proposed bylaws for air quality, they're gonna pick their own person. It could be the chair, it could not be the chair, it could be whoever they want, but.
Well, I think the timing is fortuitous in that you could actually have that membership rotate through and have everybody, all 3 committees, 1, 2, 3, having had a stint as we get into developing the new NTP. And so, but I think it would be appropriate to give them a heads up. The air quality committee, since they're the one who's going to be rotating after being on the committee for a long time. So we have a motion.
I move that we table this for 1 month and have an action item on our next meeting, and in the meantime, that the 3 committees are given a heads up that this is on our agenda for next month, and then we edit the document with the implementation recommendation from the TSC. We can discuss that more after.
I think if we do table it, it might make it difficult for, say, if we decide to go to the freight committee, to actually seat somebody by April 1st. Because they'll have to have the policy committee, if we wait till February, policy committee won't take action until the 3rd week of February, and then they would have to meet. Well, I guess they have a meeting scheduled in March,
They do.
so I guess they could still, but we can't delay much beyond this.
Well, I put the motion
We're
out.
going to put the motion out.
I can withdraw the motion if you're fine. There's no second. No.
I'll second it for discussion. Again, I think that's going either way. But with Lois not being here last month or this month and being potentially impacted in membership, I think
Yeah, well, it sounds like we can still do it, and if we just have to take it down.
Please note, Mr. Buckles.
And one thing to keep in mind is that currently, the language that is in the air quality advisory committee bylaws speaks about their representative on the TAC, but there's nothing in either the freight or the bike and ped bylaws about that because they haven't envisioned that. So I would imagine, unless they added something in their bylaws, voted on it, approved it, et cetera, on how they would choose this person, it would just kind of be up to the committee to decide. And I don't know that there's anything necessarily wrong with that. I mean, absent any formal clarification on how you would have to pick that person. I think we need to add that language into each of those sets of bylaws. But I don't think it means, gee, you can't appoint anybody because you don't have anything in your bylaws about how to appoint them.
So, because, I mean, they can make a recommendation on the bylaws, but the policy committee only approves the bylaws. We could put that as the package and put the information in it as part of the whole thing we recommend to the policy next month.
Yeah, and Steve, I don't remember, but in the previous, the original air quality bylaws, was there anything out there about how you selected the TAC rep on here? So we had this person on here and didn't have any formal way to do it before, so I don't think that's anything that would slow down appointing someone from either one of those committees if you guys want to do that.
I won't object to delaying it a month. I mean, if there's a benefit that people know as a courtesy, I don't have a problem with it. If there's no sense of urgency, then let's just
So,
let others know.
so when do we want to start it with who? That's, I mean, the implementation language, we should probably figure that out. We wanna.
Well, it's gonna
keep
come
it
back-
Probably another week, another year, or do we wanna take the opportunity to try one and put a new committee on
I don't know. Steve, what, I mean, Craig, what would you recommend to staff that we do? Do we start now, or do we continue for at least another year? Have you thought about that?
I think we should start now, personally. Partly because we are just about to go through this new tip process. Everything that is allowed in the criteria and the ranking and scoring and all those things. And because of the decreased emphasis on what we have to do with air quality, the fact that a lot of the things that we might be doing might have an impact on freight, or by competitive, if we start it now, then we get those people involved who may not have been involved before, and I think it's a really good opportunity for a big education for them. So I would rather start it now and get rolling with that.
You should write that in a recommendation when you give it back to us next month.
it? Well, I would put it in there and then ship it out to everybody so they,
Yeah.
they know. So, yeah.
The motion still stands. It's been seconded. Is there any other discussion? Well, I was doing us, I was making sure we were done. Is there any public comment at this time? Hearing none? Motion's back with us. So we've had a motion, we've had a second. Are there any opposed to tabling this until our February meeting to allow for the advisory groups to be notified and for the staff recommendations regarding implementation to be included? Hearing none, we are so moved.
Thank you, Cindy.
Alright, we're now on to the original marked item 5A, which is the AMATS Air Quality Advisory Committee bylaws revision.
Do you want me to start that, Steve, or do you want to do follow? It's up to you. Well, so these are some changes that the Air Quality Committee, they talked about it last week, right? They approved, yeah, they actually approved it. To reflect some of the changes in the membership. Obviously, there's no IM industry anymore, so that kind of language got taken out and added the public representative, right?
Well, there was one, now we have two.
Right, so there's one other public member.
The other.
Right.
public
Yeah,
member,
yeah. Well, the freight committee has one kind of public seat, not specifically named, but the parking committee has 4 public members. So, yeah, we kind of an at-large public member, so it's precedent. There's language under 2.6 about the public involvement announcement that we do before every meeting, on post materials, and then talking about how the vice chair is elected and the TAC rep. And then also, importantly, under the item 4 there, there's amendments to the bylaws that reinforces the idea that the policy committee is the one who ratifies the bylaws. So, those are the changes. Happy to change the system to answer questions. Anything else?
Mr. Martin?
No, sir.
I didn't know that. Sorry.
Waving my hands to myself.
I do have a question. Craig, under the 3.2, if we go ahead and implement the change to the operating agreement we just talked about, should we add something in here that just points out that they'll be assigned or positioned every third year or something like that?
As scheduled, maybe, 3.2.1. They shall elect one member to serve as a voting member of the TEC as scheduled.
That would probably do it. Scheduled by the TAC.
During their rotational period.
Point of order, I know this is a minor thing, but I think that the way it's supposed to work is the committee adopts their bylaws, and they're ratified by the policy committee.
So we don't edit that.
So I don't think we can make, I mean, I don't think it was envisioned that way. I think it says ratify the bylaws, and I think the other one says too. So I think the idea is that it goes to the policy committee as the airport
As a-
advisor.
Okay. So that modification happened at a later date.
Yeah, I think they'd be certainly open to that. And I'm not sure if that necessarily conflicts with that. I mean, it just says they'll have, there's no seat.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Any questions or comments from the public on these AMATS air quality advisory bylaws? Hearing none?
To approve, or move to recommend it forward to the policy committee for their action.
Moved by Ms. Wood, second by Ms. Brown. Are there any opposed? Hearing none, we are so moved. Our next item is item 5B, which for tourism fees are actually marked with 5C, because it is 5C. Is the 2011-2014 TIP Administrative Modification number 5.
You did that. I just saw it.
This admin modification is before you for primarily two reasons. When we started the last major amendment, we were going off of estimates out of MAP 21 funding that we weren't quite sure upon. Now we know what those funding amounts are because the draft STIP is out. So the AMATS allocation has increased $3.8 million in 13 and $3.5 million in 14. So we need to find a home for those additional funds. Also, we had anticipated funding Diamond Road out of our pavement replacement program in the TIP. Under MAP 21, principal arterials are now eligible for NHS funding, so that has been shifted to the NHS table, essentially freeing up $9.2 million to be moved to another project in the TIP. So staff recommends two changes, well, three, but two major changes here. First, to clean up the pavement replacement program, we'll take out that $9.2 million and move it to the pavement to the NHS table. That drops the percentage of the pavement replacement program significantly low of the AMATS target of 15%. And we do need to find some additional projects for funding. So we propose adding a design phase in 13 of $500,000 and a $6 million construction phase in 2014 for Eagle River Road resurfacing, mile point 0 to 5.3, which is also identified in Table 10 of the TIP already. It's one of the few projects in Table 10 left that we have left to fund that haven't already been done. And it's a nice follow-up to the 5.3 to 12.6 project we're doing now. The second change would be to add the rest of the money to Dowling Road. With those additional funds, we have about $34.4 million in for Diamond, still about $1.5 million short. So we still have a funding gap even with these additional funds. And when we get to the obligation report, I'll show you how the DOPS will cover that funding. So we'll be okay on Dowling in this proposal if these additional funds are directed towards Dowling.
Is this $5 million for design, for the paper replacement 2000?
500,000.
Because it says 5,
Oh, does it?
yeah, it says 5,200.
Oh, that's because it also includes the A Street resurfacing project, the construction phase of that project.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's gonna say that was way-
4.7, yeah.
All right, so
Thank you
that's the
for clarifying that,
4.7
yeah. It's a little confusing because they're wrapped into one line item there.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh,
So those changes are identified in red in these tip tables. And if you have any additional questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Mr. Moore?
Is there any reading of the tea leaves that other roads which are now available for NHS funding will receive NHS funding in the future? Like Boniface, the Northern Lights, Benson?
It's possible, but I haven't heard anything.
and I think it would be a matter of those projects being identified, maybe by this body, and then proposed. the headquarters DOT, that's supposed to start doing.
I think it'd be a good exercise to clean up Table 10 of the tip, since most of those projects are completed, to come up with a new pavement replacement program.
As part of the new.
Yeah, something that we can pull from pretty easily.
Isn't that also the reason why we wanted to make sure all of our roads are classified accurately and consistently amongst both DOT and MOA to make sure that we can maximum kind of.
We just went through that process, yeah, to make sure, and because it opens up a lot more roads for NHS funding that's not particularly available.
Any other questions?
I have a couple. Hey, Bart, I noticed that the CMAC numbers are gonna go down a little, well, they go up a little bit, 13, and down a little bit, maybe 14, but it looks like it's pretty much the same number at the end, 2.7-ish. Okay. And then, I might have missed Ken's comment on the backside of your memo. Is that 5.2 million or 500,000 in 2013 for?
It's $5.2 million because it includes $4.7 million for A Street resurfacing construction, and then $500,000 for design for Eagle River Road. Yeah, A Street was already in there. It was, if you look in the 13.902.
Yes.
That was Diamond and A Street, so we took out 9.2, added 500,000, and got.
Okay. And is the pavement of Diamond, because in the pavement rehab, we have two projects, Jewel Lake to Arctic and then Arctic to the New Seward Highway. Is this Diamond project, Jewel Lake to the New Seward Highway? Same project?
Yep, exactly the same.
We're essentially having projects on the pavement replacement program that we actually work with.
We are out of them.
Not according to some public. Sorry. Sorry.
Our work here is
Chuckle
done.
line.
We're good.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Any questions or comments from the public? Sorry, TIF modification, sorry, administrative modification, it's not amendment, yes, different process. All right, hearing none from the public, that's back with us.
Move to recommend approval to the policy committee on 2011-2014 TIF administrative modifications.
Second?
Seconded by Ms. Cook. Are there any opposed?
Just a comment, Madam Chair. Bart, with the new additional money, the percentage for, I mean, the percentage isn't changing a lot, but percentage on enhancements is going to be close. We've got to make sure that we obligate what we've got so that we don't get below that percentage. So if future money comes in and the obligations come in, if we have enhancement projects or CMAC projects or the projects that aren't de-obligating, we need to make sure we put attention to them so that we meet the target. So
Correct. We
I
have
think
that
it's a
$1
good
million
move.
for the bike plan this year, and I haven't seen anything. I don't know what, I think there's communication between the city and the state on how to move forward with that.
Okay. I just.
It's a lot
that's it.
to.
Just as long as when additional funds come in, then all over the roads, we think about the proportional split of the additional money, so we keep the proportional split the same. That's it. I support the motion.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we're approved.
Madam Chair, if I just may ask staff, because that is a source of confusion, could you add a sentence on the memo for the policy committee about the 5.2 and 13 for the payment replacement program?
Yes.
And I just one more question. Maybe this is a question for Craig. Craig, at the policy committee meeting, like this last amendment, the mayor had some interest in putting some money and support road improvements. So I know that when he sees this, if he sees this, and we've got additional funds in, and we're putting them to projects in there, this may also raise his interest to how come we're not using those additional monies for port. So if you get a chance to brief him, you might want to find out, maybe you, Steve, kind of find out what his mission is to do that, because if we do have these opportunities, we can program accordingly, if possible. I mean, if it's not ability to obligate, then, but he's going to keep raising it, and unless we come up with a better answer as a technical committee.
Funny you should ask that question, because he has directed me to prepare an amendment, which you'll see next month, major amendment to the TIP adding support project to table 3. By hook or by crook, whatever dollar figure we can get in there, so you'll see that at your next meeting. Okay.
But we also, Bart and I have also had a discussion on these matters too, absent knowing that there was going to be an opportunity to move money around on the how-to of doing it. And, we're looking at making sure that if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. We're going to pace it with when we find ourselves in a position that we actually have a design and a way ahead. And we're not just shoving ourselves in there and without a story to tell for 2, 3, 4 years.
I think that's different than what Craig is saying now, though.
No, you're absolutely right. It is different than what Craig is saying now, because we even talked about what if and that.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
I mean, I can just see him, if he brings the subject up,
Yeah.
we should help him solve it if we can. I mean, I think his comments at the policy committee were a surprise, as I was in the audience, was a surprise to me that he had interest in taking money from it and putting it into a port project, because I hadn't heard about it until then.
Yeah, Steve, what is the timing with the port? You've already mentioned that you guys, that you
Yeah,
have some
well,
alternatives being looked at, and what is the timing for
Well,
having an
where we
idea?
stand now is we've got CH2M Hill coming back to us in mid-February with 3 different design options for moving forward. We will pick one of those and spend 13 taking that design to 100%. How am I doing, Jerry? Am I doing right?
Well,
Or as close to it as we
it's
can?
close to that, but the decision hasn't been made how to advance it to the next level, whether it's a design build, design bid build.
All that's got to happen.
You know, there's
Yeah. Once we know where we'd like to go,
Yeah.
the how we're going to get there is going to get decided, and then the design effort. We'll step out on the design effort. And we've got funding to do all of that right now. We don't anticipate really doing anything in the way of construction at all until 14,
So
the
is that
earliest.
Design is with non-federal funds at this point?
Well, don't call it non-federal funds. It's monies that we have already, some of
The
which are
earmarked
federal, some
funds,
of which
okay.
are state. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
CNG station on
Who's that?
Just a different method of delivery.
Anyway, Stephanie, I didn't mean to get us in a rat hole there on this one here. I just thought we'd get this one last,
Yeah.
but if this one's gonna keep coming
I
up.
mean, this is either gonna be a controversial issue right now, or it's gonna be one when we're ready to speak intelligently to the topic. I'd rather wait.
They'll just,
But the mayor may prompt us to move it along a little quicker.
Is there any other business? Other business? No? All right, then moving on to the informational reports, and item 6A is the obligation report.
Okay, that's the colorful sheet. Again, purpose. We've chosen purple for 2013 to be at the top, so it's a big unveil.
That's your new color?
Yeah.
It's the obligation pattern.
Yeah. So just to recap how this works, I crossed my fingers and hope that you guys would approve the recommendation for the admin mod. So the first column, the tan column, is the numbers in the admin mod. Green is what's been obligated so far, and blue is what we anticipate left to obligate this year. Big one to note, we had a DIOB for Eagle River Road of $3.6 million. That was due to a low construction bid. That doesn't mean that at some point this year or next year that they're going to have construction overruns and going to need more money. So, but it means we have that money right now available. We also plan to add $1 million into O'Malley Road for right-of-way. This was in the tip as AC. It looks like right now we'll be able to add it into the tip and not AC it, which will free up money in 14. That's the plan for now, so we're going to leave it as that. Pavement replacement, you see the $4.7 million that was anticipated to obligate for A Street. And then we'll add that design hit later on for Eagle River Road. Dowling Road, we had $18.3 million in the TIP admin mod. We need to get to about $42 million. So we kind of work backwards. We have $14.6 million in 2014 that we're going to AC. Then we have a $6.8 million earmark, so that means that this year we need to obligate at least $20.7 million. So we have that amount in there. That'll fully fund Dowling Road as of now. That does not mean that that's the number is not going to change as well. Safety improvement program, we're on track to obligate all of that money. Freight mobility study, we're working on coming up with a match from the municipality to obligate those funds. On the second page, the only project left to obligate in transportation enhancements is the only one, that's the bike plan project. We did have to add $100,000 for construction overruns for the Muldoon Road project. There's a couple DOBs in that category you see at the bottom there. CMAC at the bottom of page 2 and all of page 3. All of those, the only one that's obligated is the first one. The other ones are on track to obligate as they show in the tip, so there's nothing new to report there. On the final page, about a third of the way down, you see the big red box. That's where we match up what's in the tip versus what we anticipate to obligate. So we are at the tip, $28.8 million. We anticipate to obligate right now 27.9, so we're off by almost $900,000. So we're pretty close right now at the beginning of the year. So you saw how those extra funds came in and how the DOBs helped fund Dowling Road and how at the end it kind of all balances. And we have about $900,000 worth of wiggle room for construction overruns right now. Not a lot. Our program is pretty tight this year. Then at the last two sections, the NHS and the GF, those are just for informational items. We have some money ready, we got obligated there for the NHS projects. And some that's already obligated. So that was pretty quick. If you have questions?
So Bart, on this obligation report for table 6, are you going to add Diamond?
No, because, oh, yes, I will. Thank you. I will.
Just so we can keep track next month?
Yeah, thank you for noticing that.
Okay. And fortuitous that you were thinking that we would already approve your, and then go ahead and show your obligation report. I thought maybe you'd be ahead.
I should have been.
These are for information only, so.
Yeah.
But it's not right.
We're already informed.
It's true, we should reflect the total amount of money that's being spent in the AMATS area.
Right.
for this AMATS allocation.
Well, and it may not go as smooth as we hope.
It's true. But now at least we have the recommendation, I can at least say that. It says draft on there still to add them
Any other questions?
No, but I do have one for maybe Craig involved, and just in the interest of keeping the schedule for the new tip development kind of updated, to ask if maybe they could ask them to, between now and the next time, to kind of get themselves together with maybe a small working committee to evaluate the existing criteria and to begin work on that. So rather than asking the technical committee to appoint maybe a technical working group, to ask staff to find it, make it happen, if everybody's okay with that.
I will tell you that at the freight committee yesterday, we did have a discussion on the roadway criteria, and Teresa added a new criteria on freight to have them look at it and discuss. And at the bike and ped committee next Wednesday, we have the topic for discussion on the transportation enhancements or alternatives one. So we're doing it at the advisory level. We'll have to do it with the CMAC ones. I mean, those are pretty fine tuned, but we need to take a look at them. But I don't think the idea was a great idea. Happy to have anyone.
Are the criteria going to be released for public comment prior to using them?
What does our process require? I can't remember. They probably, I don't know.
It does not require them, but that's what we did last time. I think so. We
It
did
makes
that
it more
last time.
defensive, it's a lot more defensible when we have had them get vetted and then,
Yeah.
because then when they come back later and whine about it, say, well, they went through the public, when the scores come out, then you say, well, they went out and they were looked at.
Yeah,
Mr. Rhodes?
yeah, if you're gonna put a little working group together, the port would like to put a representative on that, if you don't mind. So we can be a little smarter about this. I know Craig, bothers Craig immensely, but I'm gonna ask you to step in.
Yeah.
What else you got over there?
If I promise you it won't be me, will that change your mind?
Charlie Wines and I were probably testing it.
I was gonna jokingly say, can I be removed from, no. Kidding.
Not the long,
You're not,
that historical perspective. He twitches.
In my sleep, people, I could do it in my sleep.
I get to look forward to that.
Yeah.
Yay. Sure. Any other questions or comments on the audit report? Any questions or comments from the public on the audit report? Information, we don't do any. Are there any comments this time?
I have a question for Jennifer. What's the status of the STIP approval? I know the public comments closed Monday.
Right, I don't have,
My interest is that the grant that we won, the state repair grant that we won for the buses, we need to get that money on our side of the fence, and we've been waiting for the STIP process to be done so that we can appropriate the money and buy the buses. And so the sooner that that happens and we get notice.
have we, it was kind of this odd process to get the currently adopted major STIP amendment incorporated into the STIP. Are we able to do that since it's so different?
The TIP amendment?
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything. I sent it for approval. It should be a separate process. It should be
It would be,
incorporated
that
into
would
the
be
STIP.
the one to, not to wait for this new STIP.
No, the one that was just out that closed Monday.
Right.
The tip that we approved should have been part of that STIP.
It could actually be adopted as part of the current in place.
I've been kind of holding off under the assumption that when the policy committee approved the TIP in December, we had to wait for the STIP to get approved in January so that we could appropriate the money so that we could buy the buses.
Let's have you follow what.
You don't have to wait for the STIP to be approved, but you need to wait for the TIP to be incorporated into the STIP.
And to make sure that they would do it, and that's why we had to do this as in law, because it's so different right now.
So Bart, could you help me there?
I can find out where it is in that process.
And encourage it to be done in the future for that reason.
That would be
Because that's the only project that would be, you don't want to hold that.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to wait, but it's part of the process.
Well, it's always part of the STIP regardless of whether it's being amended or not, so it could be incorporated separately. But if they do it that way, I don't know if they're willing to.
Guessing.
And then
End of the month, Ken, for the STIP to get it approved.
Guess earlier this
it would be nice to get that
Yes.
done independently.
It still has to be done, and even if the STIP amendment gets approved, it still has to be quote unquote incorporated.
I'll be paying you on a regular basis, Bart, to go, but.
I'll be out of town to the 20th.
I'll be paying you on a regular basis.
That was an awesome.
That's true, too.
All right, thank you,
I
Steph. That's all.
Get my
I
voice.
have time for this process, I want to buy buses.
Send an email.
And I
I
want
will.
my striper.
Striper, please.
Any other committee comments? We good to go there? No? All right, so we,
Oh, I think we have something. We're hopefully to start, we're hoping the commission will sign the release for public notice tomorrow, if not tomorrow, Monday, for the maintenance plans. The state will come in, so that, start our process, get that thing, maybe just the maintenance plan adopted.
Congratulations.
And after that comes the EPA getting 18 months to look at it, or?
Actually, well, because we packaged it with Fairbanks and we're requesting Fairbanks has a fast track because they didn't do Acres did, they didn't do the moves first and then the limited maintenance plan. Well, that anomaly with moves, remember that Fairbanks can't demonstrate attainment with the model. So they have to have a limited maintenance plan, so they can't do any amendments or to the tips or plans after March 13th until they get this LMP approved. So we are rushing hard to get this LMP through. So we're doing this in advance of the assembly doing action on it. And so the assembly action will be incorporated as part of comment, the comment period. So we're overlapping a little bit to expedite it.
And the PM10.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
EPA has actually published proposals to approve. You'll finally be okay now. Draft order. You'll be.
Finally.
After 20 years.
So March 8th, if there's no adverse comments, it would be direct final rule, and it will go into effect on March 8th. But then we can take all the things that we no longer are a non-payment area.
So we're in
Maintenance.
maintenance area.
And it's also limited maintenance, time, so you don't have to do the conforming, it'll be much easier
So
there.
good.
So the next triennial review, if all goes well, there really won't be any air quality issues with the Frankfurt. As long as everybody doesn't burn a whole lot of stuff.
Don't worry. Note to self. Cancel hurricane.
Don't burn.
No wet wood.
Yeah, I know.
Drop in your gas or wood.
That's good news. Anything else? All right, the policy committee meeting is 2 weeks from today. I'm Mary Joy down at City Hall. And we'll be back here on Valentine's Day.
Oh, you know where red?
No.